Believe me, if you are someone who's used to making excuses for where you are, where you came from, and you can't go forward but because of your past, please stop. Because I want to ask you something. Has any of that complaint helped you so far? In fact, people start getting tired of your complaints. Everyone wants to run away from you. No one wants to stay close to you because everyone wants something to lift them up, encourage them, help them see a better future. So we like you can't choose where you start from. That's one thing. I for one know you can't choose where you start from. But where you end up, where you go, that's up to you. That's your decision. That's the power in you. Most time we'll see two brothers, one very successful and one a failure. Why? And that's because one has decided to use his past as a fuel to push him forward, and the other one has decided to use it to hold himself back. So believe me when I say, like, where we all start, like, that's got nothing to do with us. That's not a decision. Like, that decision has been made before we conceived. But where we go, that's totally up to us. That's within us. That's, believe me, I know these things. Where I started is not the best of the place, but having gotten out of that environment, looking around me and thinking, I want to do something. I want to be like the people who admire me. Who I admire. I want to be able to create something. I want to be able to leave a legacy. Those decisions are your decisions. They've got nothing to do with where you come from. And there's other who has everything in this world, but then they still want more. In every society you go, you would see people who are entitled. They have reasons to complain. But it's not like you shouldn't complain, you shouldn't cry about your situation, you shouldn't worry about that. But has any of that helped you? Because what that does is every time you spend your time complaining, you're losing the focus to think of how to work on yourself, how to improve, how to get better. Every time you spend on thinking about, if I came from a better home, a better family, if my parents were educated, if I was born in a different country, you're losing the ability in you to think for yourself. What can I do now that I'm here? I remember as a child playing dice, on the street corner, gambling with my mates. And each time you get the same dice of highest numbers is 6, smallest number 1. Most time you get 2. And you roll the dice together and you throw these dice. So the dice comes out, sometimes you get 7, 12, whatever. But we all starting from that same position of holding these dice in our hand. But through your action, you could either get 1 or 6. So for your life to improve, you have to take an action. So sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But the point is taking that action, throwing that dice. Another thing is growing up a lot, I spent time in tennis camp and with a lot of friends, and when I have downtime, I spend it playing card with friends, from different places, different towns, different countries. So each time you get dealt a card, the card is distributed by one of the players. Each time you get different cards. Sometimes you get a good hand and sometimes you get a bad hand. But what do you do every time you get a bad hand? Let's say you got bad hand consistently. Do you just drop it and say, no, I've lost, I'm quitting? No. You play the best hand you can with the card you have. For me, that's what life is about. You do the best you can with what you have. But what you should know, even when you've done your best, you still got the capacity to do more, the ability to do more. Like, your best is never your best. I was listening to Eddie Pinero the other day, and he was saying every time he goes for a run, he ends on 22 seconds. Like, if he's doing an hour, he does an hour and 22 seconds. If he's doing 30 minutes, he does 30 minutes and 22 seconds. If he's doing 2 hours, he does 2 hours and 22 seconds. Just like every time he stops on 22 seconds. But then sometimes he thinks, oh, I could do another 22 seconds, another 22 seconds, another 22 seconds. So basically, life is like additional 22 seconds, and whatever it might be for you. For my wife, it's like 11 seconds, 11. Every time it's 11, it's like her lucky number. So whatever she does, she wants to do an additional 11 seconds. So she does 11 seconds. Whenever it's 11, she could do an extra 11 seconds. She always wants to end on 11. So we all have little things that pushes us forward, that makes us try to do more. But once you recognize, like, this is the card I'm dealt with, they're not a very good card, but maybe I've staked my money, so I've got something to play for, I've got something to work for. So that's what life is about. Like, sometimes you start from a very horrible place, a bad place, like I did, like like a very poor or humble beginning, whatever. But where you go from there, it's up to you. Like, I still go back home, and there's so many people who started from the same place, still in the same place. Why I'm not saying, look, I'm better than these people now or anything, but I'm just looking back, I'm thinking, well, it's not all by my power, but I can say I willed myself out of this situation. Of course, there's the power of luck, there's the power of God, but I'm saying I willed myself out of this situation because I kept on going after something, day after day, week after week, month after month. Like, I never gave in. When I fell, I came back, cried, and stood up again, and went after the same thing again and again. You see, there's something about knocking. There's something about knocking. It's even in the Bible, like, when you knock, the door would open. But it doesn't tell you how many times you have to knock. Some people just knock once and then they give in. Some people twice, and then some people probably maybe like a salesman. You go to door, you knock, someone comes out and they abuse you, insulting. You move on to the next one. The same thing. Like, for a salesman to make one sales, they probably have to knock on 10, 15 doors to make one sale. So they're never gonna say, like, oh, because the first 2 doors were horrible to me, I'm just gonna quit today and abandon my sales. No, they kept on going door to door, door to door, door to door. So for me, that's what life is about. It's like the Bible says, when you knock, so you keep on knocking, time after time, days after days, month after month, door after door. Like, some door would shut in your face, slam in your face, come out, insult you, pour something on you, but some doors will open onto you. But that's only available to you who keeps on knocking, to person who keeps on trying, the person who keeps on going. There's a quote attributed to who's that now? I think it's Einstein. He says, quitting, it's a decision. It really is a decision. Like, I never thought about it like that before. I always think, oh, you get tired. No, it's like quitting is a decision. Like, it's a will to quit. Like, after this door, I'm gonna stop for tonight, I'm gonna go home, that's it. And everyone comes to that point, like, after this amount, I'm gonna knock 20 doors tonight, and after 20 doors, I'm gonna stop. That is your decision. Like, you've already made that decision to stop. So quitting is a decision. It's not even because you couldn't go on and knock maybe 5 more, even one more door, it's because you've made that decision to stop. So that decision is in you. It's not actually because you couldn't knock one more door, because your problem is insurmountable, because you outclassed. No, it's because you've made that decision. For whatever reason, you've made that decision that I am going to stop. So basically, I'm saying whatever life gives you, the ability to do the best you can with that situation is totally up to you. Like, even sometimes you could do your best, you could do the best you can in everything, like everything is 100%, but then you lose. I've been in a tennis match where like you lose by just 2 points. You've done everything, you were like in a winning position, and you win, you lose by just 2 points. And sometimes you like in a losing position, you're like match point down, just 1 point, and you come back and win. And I've been in that position so many times, and so many other people have been in that position so many times. So, but the best you can do is just to play the best hand you could in that situation. That's all. That's all you can do. That's all I'm asking of. Don't hold yourself back by thinking, oh, I'm in the very bad place. Everything is against me. Life is against me. No one like. No, that will never help you. That would only push you down. That would keep every door that's meant to open unto you away. They will close before you. And you see this yourself. When people come on to you, complain day and day and day, the ability for you to avoid those people comes first. When you see them, I open my WhatsApp these days, and even my wife's WhatsApp, when she opens it and shows me, there's thousands of people with different kind of complaints about life, about like we are going through the same thing. But sometimes she helps those people out just by listening to them. Maybe that helps them. Of course, she doesn't look forward to that, because it's like, but at least she's of help to them. But that's what I'm saying. Like, no one looks forward to, or no one wants to be around someone who comes. Because the thing is, we all, regardless of what you think of someone, they're living the best life they can. They have their own issue going. It's just they're not sharing with you, but they have something they're not getting. They have something they want. They have something they think, they believe it's missing in their whole life. Every human, as far as you're living, you have something that you want. So if you're in a card game and you dealt a bad card and you spend your time complaining about how horrible, how bad your card is, you have no other chance. You haven't even got the chance of winning. But if you play the best hand you can with that card, sometimes you win. And that's what I'm just saying. That is all you have to try and do. Play the best you can with the best you have. Don't even think about, don't worry about what you don't have. Do what you have with what you have. So life is like, sometimes you have bad cards, you play and win. And sometimes you have the best cards, you play and lose. So what is it about really? Is it about the card we dealt with, or how we play? I believe it's really how we play. Because I've seen some kids who come from the best primary school, best private secondary school, best universities in the world, where they pay, like, I'm talking about Harvard, like, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, where they pay about like $100,000 a year, and they just like end up being like you and me, working an average job every day. But I've seen kids who have nothing, who like got themselves from the dead, and they're doing like they know, they recognize they're one of the biggest people in a field. So most time it's about you. It really is about you. It's about your drive. It's about what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. I was having a conversation the other day with a friend, And he was saying like when he was growing up um, back home in Africa, he had these people who lived in like his cousins. Actually, his cousins, they lived in the rich part of the country. So they came to UK for holidays every summer, and then like after the high school they moved to UK and went to uni and everything. And so when they came back, they brought leftover clothes to them and other things. And then like 20 years on, he's moved to UK. He's living alongside them. He's doing better than them. He owns his own house, everything. And now those same people who had more than he did before, who had a better opportunity than he did before, who has been seeing the world than he did before, they now come to him for help of different types. And even like one day they had a family meeting, and the mom to these rich kids like was using him as an example, like, okay, so she was saying to her kids like, okay, you had all this opportunity, everything, and now look at this, your cousin who had nothing, who came from the trenches, now he is now doing well, better than you, and you all are now going to him for help. So the difference is like, although my mate came from poverty, but he applied himself. He knew I had nothing, I have to go and do this. But his richer cousins who had more, they were just so happy to be living life, just passing through life, just enjoying what they could enjoy, never actually thinking about, when my parents go, what can I do for myself? Where do I see myself? How do I work on myself? How do I grow myself? They were just busy being a rich kid. So being a rich kid up till you 25, 30, you have no experience. No one wants to employ a 30 years old as a trainee, a graduate, and you actually didn't have the ability or the entrepreneurial mind to start your own business. So now you're in your 30s, in your 40s, you have no core solid experience. Anyone could give you a job. You should be in a managerial position. Now you want to start as an apprentice. So basically what I'm driving at is, it's not really where you start. It's how you start, what you do, the process, the work you put in, the belief in yourself, the discipline. Another thing I was listening to the other day, I was listening to Jordan Peterson. He was like saying, discipline and commitment, exactly the same thing as sacrifice. Because for you to be disciplined and committed in one field, it means you have to sacrifice other field. So if you're disciplined and committed, like you're going to study, you're going to read, it means you have to sacrifice maybe going to the club every day to just one Saturday or one Sunday. So, and he's saying, if two people who are talented to the same level, the person who is more disciplined would outshine the other person. Because why? If you're more disciplined, it means you're more committed. If you're more committed, it means you're willing to sacrifice more. And if you're willing to sacrifice more, it means you're going to work harder. So if you work harder, it means you're going to work longer. If you work longer, it means you're going to produce more. So don't get me wrong, even the other person could work smarter, but I'm saying for two people who are actually, smart to the same level. So I'm saying the best thing you can do is, instead of accepting defeat and throwing, your card in because you've been dealt a bad hand, by accepting the hand you've been dealt and playing the best you can, like giving it all, knowing like, look, I'm starting from a losing position anyway, but I'm gonna give it everything, even if it kills me. You just might win. You just might win. I've seen that before. Like I always use tennis and because that's what I play and watch. And sometimes I use animals because I watch David Attenborough most time, and I tend to see a lot of similarities in human with animal. Even animal, animals act on instinct only, and human we have the decision. But I tend to see a lot of similarities from that. So it's like when you match point down in tennis and you're like, look, I've lost anyway, but I'm gonna play the best I can here. They say you play freely. You forget about the burden, like, okay, the heavy load of losing. You just forget about that and you play the best you can. And then sometimes they say the person gets in the flow, in the zone. That's because you start hitting the ball like you're crazy, because you're thinking, look, I'm gonna lose anyway, or I might lose anyway, so I better give it the best I can. What's holding me back? That's when you get off the shackles that's holding you back. You go in as hard as you can. You do the best you can. You hit the ball as crazy, and before you know, you're turning around. From a match point down, you become the winner. Why? Because you've unburdened yourself with that decision, that thought of, oh, I'm insufficient. Oh, I'm not this. Oh, I'm this bad. Oh, I'm not good. You've gotten rid of all that. You're now thinking about strictly about the ball. And that's it. Like, you're thinking just about life. How do I win? How do I improve? How do I increase my skill? How do I read more? How do I educate myself? How do I brush up my language? What's my interest? How do I pursue that? That's it. What separates you from the other people, and that's what takes you out. Like, no matter how bad a place you are, I've come from the worst place. I've been to the even places who like more horrible than where I've come from. And no matter how bad that place is, is always someone from there who's made it out. There is always someone from there who's made it out. No matter how much of a jungle that place is, the killers and everything on the street, drug dealers and whatnot, gangsters and pimps, there is always someone who's made it out. And I'm not saying they've made it out by doing the right thing or bad thing, but they've made it out by doing something. And that's what I'm telling you. It's not about where you are coming from. That has nothing to do with you. You could, like, if we all had the choice of where we're born, some countries will be empty. There will be no one there. It will be like a barren country. It will be like the Antarctica. It will be like, like the Sahara. There will be nothing there. Nothing. There will be no one there. But we can't. We don't have this power. The best we can do is do the best with what we have. This is where I am. This is where I am. Where do I go from now? Where do I go from now? It's like driving in a road and you come to a fork in the road. You have to make that decision. You have to make that decision. There's no way you're going to be driving, you come to a fork in the road, you've lost your GPS, you've lost your phone, you have no direction. Now the direction lies with you. Do you sit there and say, look, of course, I don't know if I need to go A or B. I'm going to sit here till. Of course, you might decide to sit and look for someone to help you, give you direction. And if that's in the motorway, very unlikely someone is going to pull over. But maybe, let's say the percentage of that happening is still there. Someone comes over and gives you a direction. Maybe they give you the right or wrong direction. But if no one comes, at a point you would have to make the decision: do I go right or left? So you're taking right or left, not actually knowing if you're going the right way or the wrong way, but you definitely know you're moving, you're taking action, you're doing something, you go in a direction. You might end up going right, and halfway you decide, oh, this is not the way, I'm not familiar with this. Then you have to turn back and start facing the right way. But then at least you've made the decision, you've gone that way, and now you know that is not the way to go. So basically, we all have to make a decision for ourselves. We all have to say, am I happy being here? where I had no choice, I am here. Do I want to carry on complaining and blaming my parent, my father, whatever the situation that's kept me here? Or do I want to start thinking, who are the people I know that have made it out of this place? What have they done? Are these the people I admire? How can I get myself out here? Just by even thinking about people you admire, that will tell you who you are. That will tell you the kind of values you have. Because the worst thing you can do in that situation is to start playing the victim card, to start thinking like the world is against you. Nothing works in your favor. You're a failure. You can never make it. Life is so hard on you, like you deserve special attention. You start degenerating into something worse, horrible, bad. You dive down into the abyss. You become resentful, vengeful, angry, and things get worse from there on. That is not helping you. That cannot help you. That's not helping anyone. That does not encourage anyone. I'll ask you a question. I grew up in an area where there's a lot of adults around. I'm talking adult, I'm talking as a kid. I grew up with a lot of adults around. I'm thinking like in my teenage years, there's a lot of adults around in their 40s and 30 something and 40s. All they did was like they woke up, and they had no job. They just, walked up to a joint where this, some lady selling some sort of homemade spirits, So, all they did was just they drank, sat around, reminisced about the past, day in and day out, day in and day out. So as a kid, when I get up in the morning, or maybe after school, when I get up in the morning, then I walked to school, and then let's say after school I go back home around 2:30ish, and then grab something to eat at home. Then I start walking back to the tennis club as a ball boy. Then when I go into the tennis club as a ball boy, then I walk past this same adult sitting in that same position, drinking, reminiscing about the past. Then I go in there, go to the tennis club, let's say around 4 o'clock. Then around 4 o'clock, I hang out with other kids, similar kids like me from the same neighborhood, and we go across the road where we've got richer families and their kids coming to play tennis. So let's say I play tennis with other kids from like 4 to 6 or 4 to 5 sometimes, depending on when the club members turn up to play tennis. And let's say they turn up around 5ish to 6, then we have to stop playing tennis, and then we take up our role as ball boys, and pick balls and so I would do that probably from let's say from 6 to 10 o'clock sometime in the evening. And this is a teenager I'm talking about, in high school, like 11, 12, 13 or something like that. So I would do this to 10 o'clock and then sit and wait for the members when they're about to go. Then they give you tips and whatnot. So like in a day, I probably have made maybe $1 to $5 some days, and then on my way home I walk past this same adult sitting in that same place, still drinking, reminiscing, and sometimes they holler at me like, come and buy us drink and do this, and like, so imagine this is like me, a teenager, so they come like, oh, buy us drink, oh, what have you got, so I don't have nothing, then I'll go, so this carried on all till I went through high school. I left high school. I focused on tennis full time, so I wasn't a ball boy anymore, and now I became from a ball boy to like a senior ball boy. And then I started, so I no more I started like became a tennis player. I started traveling for tournament and junior tournament and then senior tournament. But whenever I moved out and from my parents' house, and but whenever I went for a tournament, when I came back, is these same people in that same position now? They're like, oh, you come and buy us drink from your winnings and everything. So, but what am I saying? I'm saying like we all came from that same neighborhood. We had nothing. There was nothing in that neighborhood. In fact, across the road there was like the residential area of the rich. So you like the you like from the ghetto right across the rich neighborhood, and you could see everything there. You could see the rich people, what they're doing. You could see their kids, private schools and everything. And some people just use that as like, oh look, I'm poor, I just sit here, drink and complain. And that's what those adults did every day, from when I was a teenager till when I grew and left. Teenager, they did that every single day. From when I was from primary school, I went to high school, I grew, I left my parents' house. When I came back, from every time, like, oh, buy us drink from your winnings, buy us food, pocket money. So these same people stood in that same position and complained every day. When they sat at that joint, all they talked about, reminisce, was how things were bad, how things weren't working, all the disadvantage they had. But they missed me working every day, going past through them, going as a kid to support myself till I became an adult. So what I'm saying is like, regardless of where you've come from, there are those people who would sit and talk about how hard life is against them. But they would see you succeeding, they would see you thriving, they would see you walking towards something, but they would never take a second and look at you and think, come on, this person is same as us, same place, even worse. Even we had a better understanding or a better life, or at least we're older than him, we should have more advantage, we should have known more. So people who are going to complain are going to complain. But people who are going to make it out are going to make it out regardless of where they've come from. So if you are that person who you usually complain about how bad things are, think about some other people. Look around you. I'm sure you're going to find someone who's exactly the same as you, and they've decided to turn their life around. They decided to do something different. They decided to walk towards something different. They decided to become something someone looked up to. And I'm telling you, my neighborhood, like, everything bad you want, you could find. Every kind of drug you could find, every kind of criminal you could find, every kind of prostitution you could find, everything that's bad and horrible you could find in that neighborhood. And from that neighborhood, I know at least 3, 4, 5 people who made it out. 3, 4, 5 people who made it out. And when I'm saying made it out, like myself, like through tennis, I went to uni, did everything because I had my focus on who I wanted to become. But when I still go back home today, there's still people there who talk about, or when they call me aside, they want to talk about when we were kids and how things were hard on them. They're telling me how their dad died with dad I didn't know before me. So I'm saying one thing you should realize is, as far as you are human, you are a victim to something. You are a victim to something. No matter how well every other thing is in your life, you are a victim to something. There's always something you feel could be better, and there's something you always feel like you've got it worse than every other person. But don't let that stop you. That's what I'm saying. Don't let that stop you. Don't think about, like Jordan Peterson says, don't sacrifice your current self for your future self. Don't sacrifice your current self for who you could be in the future, because there's so much more you could do with just a little bit of working on yourself, learning to read, learning to write, learning to speak, like learning to interact with other people. So if I never actually like left my parents' house and decided to go to the tennis club as a ball boy to experience another side of life, I could have sacrificed my future self for who I was then. Probably sat around with those adults around me, like maybe became an errand boy. So when, drink with them. So don't sacrifice who you are today for who you could be in the future. There is so much more to you than you actually know. I tell you, there is so much more to you. Like when I start doing something, of course, I have the fear like every other person. I think I might feel like every other person. But going against that, knowing that, yes, I might fail, but what about if I win? What about if I succeed? What about if I'm actually better than I thought? What about? Sometimes you don't need any more excuse than just what if I win? Like, of course, some people are naturally pessimistic, but even within that, there's optimism. Like, what about if this works out? Like a writer, I send out like, books like to at least 10 agents and publishers every day. And sometimes you get 9 rejections, sometimes 10, sometimes 1, sometimes 2. But what about if one says, yes, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to do this. Let's start something. You have something here. What about if, and knowing like writing, it's subjective, like this person might not like you and this person likes you. But what about if I take that failure every day, that power of rejection every day, and say, look, I'm never going to send out my book. I'm never going to write again. I'm never going to. Just what about? Charles Bukowski is an author. He worked in the post office. He sent out his book every single day because he hated his job at the post office till he was 50. Every day he got rejection and rejection and rejection. They started drinking, smoking, and cussing himself. But he kept on writing, even when he was going through this process of thinking his life is worth nothing. He's drunk and smoked and thought everyone was against him. But he kept on writing because for him, that was his way out. He hated his job every day. He went to the post office. But he kept on writing because it was, for him, there's nothing he could do to write. That was like a way out. And certainly when he got to 50, someone, like I'm saying 10 years, someone now decided to have a go at him and said, yeah, look, I'll give you the opportunity. Charles Bukowski ended up writing 6 books and hundreds of other poems. But even when he saw himself as a failure, he kept on writing and sending it out. That's an action. Without that action, no one will have come back to him and say, let me give you a go. So what I'm saying is, the power to carry on, the power to keep going, the power to see your past as your past, but focus on what you could be. That's what separates the winners from the losers. Because someone will just see their current circumstances too overwhelming and they throw in everything. They'll give up everything. But some people will carry on despite where they are because they see where they're going to be. They see a better future for themselves. They believe tomorrow would definitely be better than today. If I kept on doing what I'm doing, someone would take notice. And if no one takes notice, I'm going to get better at what I'm doing. So don't let your current self deny you of who you could be in the future. So make the choice to work on things you can control. For now, at least for now. And other things will fall in place because they say when you work on one skill, it kind of attracts other skill. When you start getting better in writing, then maybe you want to learn how to speak properly. From there, maybe you want to take a course, because one positive attracts positive and negative attracts negative. But when you focus on just drinking yourself to stupor every night, maybe you want to start smoking, maybe you want to start doing drugs. Negative attracts negative. It's like current. But positive attracts positive. So when you start doing something, reading, writing, working on yourself, improving on yourself, as you get better in one thing, it motivates you to improve on other things. And even, even the Bible says, or there's a prayer like that goes this way, like the ability to recognize what you can control, as in what's under your control, as in what your action can move, and the things outside your control. So, first focus on what can I change in my life. Is drinking too much keeping me where I am? What negative, what stupid things am I doing? Or what things am I doing that's keeping me in the same position every day? What is it I can get rid of? They say successful people don't only write list of what to do, they also write list of what not to do. And sometimes having that list of what not to do gives you a clear picture of what to do. So if you focus on taking responsibility for where you are, who you are, what you could do, what you could change, there is nothing greater than that. There's nothing greater than that's a starting point. Like, that's you understanding and taking responsibility that this point is me. Every other thing that have come and gone outside my control, let's say, but from today on, it's within my control. Whatever I do, it's within my control. Wherever I go, it's within my control. Every action I take, hold myself responsible. Look, I'm not saying any of these things are easy, or the kids say easy peasy. No. Look, I've come from a hard place, a hard life, a difficult one at that. I know life is hard and difficult. Life is hard and difficult. Like, forget people saying, oh, life is easy. Life is hard and difficult. But we have got to live through it. We don't all get what we want. That's simple. We don't all get what we want. But by playing the best hand we could, we could win in this game of life. They say good things don't happen randomly, just randomly good things happen. No, good things don't happen randomly. But bad things happen randomly. I tell you, someone will just wake up, they have this kind of sickness, cancer, brain tumor, whatever, skin, this and that. Bad things happen randomly, but good things, no. Good things need a plan, a strategy, the ability to think. One of the best books I've read, I have that book here, I carry it everywhere I go, is one of them is the 48 Laws of Power by Rob Allen. But another book is As a Man Thinketh. As a Man Thinketh. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I don't know why the book called Allen. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. That's one of the books I've read. Like, for me, that is one of the books I've read, because it basically is not saying as a man is, where a man has started from. It basically hasn't said anything about how tall you are, how short you are, how fat you are, slim you are, how rich you are, how it says as a man thinketh. So it's basically saying to you, all you are, all you could be, is how you think. Nothing else. It's just you are your mind. It's like a car is really the engine. Forget the body. Without the engine, the car goes nowhere. You could have the best design of body in this world. Without an engine in that car, is going nowhere. You have to push it. So as a man thinketh, for me, it's the best book I've read. It's like the smallest book you could read. It's about 200 pages. So for me, that's one of the best book I've read, because it basically tells me like it's not actually about anything around you, but everything about you. Everything about you. Like, your thinking makes it so. If you're the person who thinks you're a loser, the world is against you, nothing works for you, you're rejected, you're gonna go kill yourself, subconsciously you act that out and people start running away from you, nothing works for you. But if you're the person who thinks, I'm not talking about people who are egotistic and psychopaths, I'm talking about having a clear thing, like, look, things are not how they are, but I am gonna walk my socks off because I see myself more than I am. Thinking makes it so. I know in life it's very difficult not being where you believe you should be. That is painful. That's very difficult, hurtful. And that's why so many of us don't even want to start. We don't even want to set a goal, not to talk about starting something. Because the problem is or the ideal is, if you don't set a goal, then you don't actually know if you're winning or losing. So because you don't know if you're winning or losing, you don't know if you're failing or succeeding. That kind of buffers you from feeling pain of losing, pain of failure. And so a lot of people would exist in that paradigm of not knowing if they're winning or losing. So they're happy in that place, like they're a happy place, because for them life is just about existing. They just carrying on. But if you don't have a goal, if you don't know where you're going, just like those adults I talked about growing up who sat on a drinking point and drank from morning till night, they stood in one place. They talked about, reminisced about the past. They never had a direction in life. They never knew where they were going and coming. Most people went out to look for a job, didn't get any job. Or some days I went to the club as a ball boy. I started picking ball maybe from 4, 6 to 10. I came back with nothing. I picked ball for some rich people. They're like, look, I haven't got anything today, I'll give it to me. Or some people just like, no, you went. Some days I came back with nothing. But that didn't stop me going out tomorrow to say, oh, because I got nothing yesterday, I'm not gonna go today. I'm gonna give up today. Because I saw myself beyond being a ball boy. I looked around me, I saw tennis player. I knew for me to become tennis player, I had to go through this route because my parents weren't rich enough to send me to a tennis club. We couldn't even afford to pay the membership, not to talk of. So I saw myself, for me to become a tennis player, I have to go through this route. This is the only way I could go to become a tennis player. I saw that, so I knew I had to do this. So, but some days it worked against me and some days it worked for me, but I had a goal. But some people are not willing to set that goal. That's the problem. They want to be in the place where they don't know if they go in or coming, winning or losing. If you don't know where you are, don't know what direction you're going in life, what sort of life is that? Not knowing if you're going or coming. So most people are where they are. They like to be those. I'm believing most people are in a place where they are like those adults who drank from morning to night. So they're happy being in that point where they are, because for them, trying and failing, maybe they've tried so many times and they failed. I don't know their story before they got there. I was a teenager, they were already adults, so I don't know their past. Of course, they probably told that to everyone who's willing to listen, but I don't actually know what has led them to that point, that they've become so fear of failing to try again. But the fear of that failure has kept them in that same place day after day, week after week, month after month, years after years. That has kept them unhappy. They've been in that unhappy place, but they've probably trying to drink to overcome it. But I'm not actually saying life is about searching for happiness. Maybe some people they believe in that. I don't believe life is a searching for happiness. I believe life is about searching for responsibility, for focus. Because for me, life is about progress. Just like human, we're always in search of something that keeps us going. It's just like when you're hungry, your whole focus is about food. You go, you search for food, once you eat that food, you become filled up. That frame of hunger is gone. You're no more hungry to keep searching. Now, you could get hungry later and develop another frame and start searching. But that point of searching, that particular frame is gone. So you're no more motivated by that particular frame. Now, for you to get motivated again, that only arises when you become hungry again. So for me, that's what life is about. It's that constant progress, that constant finding out something about yourself, something about your environment, what you would rather be today, what you would thinking about becoming tomorrow. It's that continuous progress, because as human, once you get there, after a little while, you become bored of it. You accomplish it. Now you want another goal. Even as kids, you buy kids' toy, they play with it the first hour, 2 hours, they bored of it, they dump it, look for something else. Even animals, you buy a cat, a toy, they scratch it and whatever. After they dump it, look for something else. We always want something new, and that something new pushes us to drive better, to become better. And for me, I feel that's where happiness comes. The constant progression. Earl Nightingale says, life is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. So I'm underlining that progressive. So because life is about progress, the progressive realization of a worthy goal. Because it doesn't mean the realization of a worthy goal, it means progressive. Because when you realize one goal, you're happy, you're comfortable. Next thing you're thinking about, oh, I want more salary. Now I'm earning 100K, I want 110K. And you start working towards that. You start working your language, your skill, taking extra courses. When other people are sleeping, you're taking night classes. When other people are going home, you're doing some analysis, you're looking into something, you're doing a research because you want extra 10K. You might have planned what you're going to use for that extra 10K, or you just want extra 10K because someone is earning 110K. When you earn that 110K, you're happy for a while. Now you're thinking, maybe I want a corner office. I don't like my office. I don't like the view. Then you start working for something else. That something else, that frame gives you the happiness to keep on going. And that's what keeps us going. As a tennis player, you're happy just, getting a ranking point. Now you're ranked in the world. And now you want to start climbing up. You want to become top 1,000 and then top 500 and top 100 and top 50 and number 1. And when you get to number 1, you want to win all the Grand Slams. And when you do that, you want to break all the record. When you do that, you want to be the one who's lasted the longest, number 1 in weeks, in months, in years. This keeps us hungry. This keeps us pushing. This keeps us looking for new. And that's what discovery is. You talk about a lot of inventors. They invent a lot of things, not because they go out seeking for it, because they go out seeking for A and they land on B. Well, it's that constant moving, that constant going towards something, that constantly realizing a worthy goal that gives us the happiness we seek, not just in search of happiness for the sake of happiness. Because who actually knows what happiness is? What's happiness to you is sadness to someone else. So we cannot just say, I want to be happy, No. We always say I want to be happy. It means we want to be doing something that's making us happy, that's making us fulfilled. And fulfilledness or happiness comes from fulfillment. The reason many of us don't try new things is because we used to having a familiar result. Things we know how they're going to work out. We don't like new things. Why? Because they bring the chances of failure. And who wants that? I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day. He was saying we human can't tolerate the level of uncertainty. And that's what stops us from trying most time. It kills us. We don't like that. That's failure. That failure kills us. There's a saying that like a coward dies 1,000 times before they're dead, and then a hero dies once. What does that mean? That means because a coward dies every time they don't try, because they know inside them they are failing, and that kills them. Some people will never ask a girl for the number. Some people will never go out on a date. Some people will never say something that, but every day they go back and say to themselves, I'm going to say something in a meeting. I'm going to say something. But that kills them every single day. Why? Because they know in themselves they could have said something and lived. But no, they would never say something. But a hero, he says that thing every day. He speaks his mind. So he doesn't go home and fight himself because he has lived. A human being, uncertainty kills us. Like, you see how people are when they're surprised. That's holding, that suspense. Some people have made a career about, out of suspense. People made a career out of this kind of stuff, planning a surprise birthday, like doing this. That suspense holds people. Like, look at a family when they're about to hear what gender their kid is. See the suspense in their face. That not knowing builds up something inside us. And imagine you've built up all that energy to know, and then you get the bad result. That kills us inside, and that's what's keeping some people where they are. That fear of failure, that building up something so much, and then it collapses on them. It's more than some people can take. It's more than some people can take, and that's what keeps a lot of people where they are. The power of not trying because they don't want to fail. To grow in life, we all need a sustaining meaning to sustain us, something we can carry on. They say life is about progress. So if you can identify something you want, keep searching for that thing. Keep searching for it. Because if you don't, that means you left in one position. Like you've retired to your fate. And what does that mean? They say retirement from the old Greek word. I'm not a Greek philosopher, but my understanding of this is like the word retirement comes from the Greek word meaning preparing to die. Preparing to die, getting ready to die. So if you retired to your fate, if you left in one position, you are planning for your own funeral. So if you don't know where to start by committing to things as simple as, look, I'm going to be responsible for myself and for people around me. I'm going to commit to a goal, maybe to a movement, maybe to change your local, your house, your local economy, your local council, maybe just being part of something, your government, your state. Sometimes I keep saying this, we are actually more than we are. Maybe just listen to someone who you admire, what they do, where you can start, reading about someone you admire, how they started. Sometimes just making the sacrifice for the task you have chosen. And before you know, you begin to see a better future. You start working towards something. Because for human, we have this understanding that, or we have the power of choice, which animals haven't got. I think that's what human has over animal. The ability to sacrifice today for tomorrow. The ability to sacrifice who you are today for tomorrow. The ability to sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. And what that means is like, because you're sacrificing today for tomorrow, then you're striving to at least live till tomorrow to see the sacrifice you've made. Willing to at least keep yourself not, off yourself, to see the sacrifice manifest itself. And what about if all your sacrifices are for nothing? What about if it doesn't work out well? You've given your best, you lived to see tomorrow, and it turned out it didn't work your way. But at least that's the best you can do at that point. They say, like, every 100 mile you walk, you see the other 100 mile clearer. So now you took a decision when you were 200 miles out. You couldn't actually see the last 100 mile clearer because you could only see the first 100 mile. That's when you took that decision. That's where you were. Now you've walked 100 miles and you could see a better, clearer picture. And now your sacrifice, your action, your decision changes to adapt because now you could see a clearer picture. And that's what it's about sometimes. Sometimes we do something when we're really far from the end point and it doesn't work out how we want it. But then when we walk closer, we'll discover, but without us taking that sacrifice in the first place, we would never have walked that 100 mile. We would never have seen a better future. We would never have known what to do. Sometimes they say how to understand what to do is, or to do something right sometimes just takes doing it wrong. In that way, you know what not to do and how to do it. So sometimes that is all it takes. Just doing something right. That's all it takes. Just doing something right. Doing something the best way you can. That's all you need. I tell you something, that's all you need. Working on something. That's all you need, something. Just working on something. So don't let where you start hold you back. Don't think you can't do better than what people have said. You are more than you are, or more than you're meant to believe. Like, you are way more better than what you can believe. You have more capacity than you can believe. Because just look at where you've come from. There are other people who have exactly that same thing as you and they've made it out. That tells you you have what it takes to make it out from where you are. Don't let people tell you are inconsequential. You have no value. You have no meaning. You have nothing to give. You have more than everything to give if you believe. If you start working on yourself. If you start thinking how you should think.